AlbionVC's Women in Leadership series. I'm Jess, an investor with Albion, and I'm joined by our talent director, Jane.
Hey, Jess.
And we are so pleased to have Katy Wigdahl, the CEO of Speechmatics, with us here today.
Hi, guys.
Thank you so much for joining us. So what Jane and I are doing is we're hosting a series of conversations with all the female founders and CEOs in the AlbionVC portfolio. So today we sort of want to pick your brain on being a CEO and then move into a quick fire round of would you rather questions to learn a bit more about you and your leadership style. But just to introduce our audience to Speechmatics, you guys are a SaaS company that has built a world-leading automated speech recognition engine. So this translates any type of speech from verbal to text, from noisy environments in any kind of accent, and it's highly accurate. And critically, it has a very small footprint, so it can run on smartphones and other devices. You guys have clients like large media companies, contact center organizations, and governments for applications in intelligence or law enforcement. So we invested in the business in 2019, and we've been super excited about working with you guys. Katy, you initially joined the business as the CFO prior to becoming CEO. And previous to that, you were the finance director with Verint Transversal. You've run your own strategy consulting business, and you spent 15 years with Unilever running various arms of the household and personal care divisions. So I would love to hear more from you. How did you come into the CEO role at Speechmatics?
No, sure. Thanks, Jess. So I'm going to sort of rewind back to, I suppose, start of my career. And actually my path to leadership really began in my childhood, where my parents encouraged me to really pursue my path and dreams. Both my parents really made a difference to the world. So my father was at Oxford. He worked with MIT. He worked with Tim Berners-Lee on the introduction of the World Wide Web. And he had a very important position at CERN. And I was really lucky to actually spend a year at CERN, working with some phenomenal scientists. And I was this financial stagiaire. But what was really clear to me was actually I didn't really want to go down the academic route. And it was really important to me to get a myriad of skills and really sort of push myself and really pursue much more of a business route into the world, like enterprise. I joined Unilever as a graduate scheme as a commercial manager and was fast-tracked. And I was given a huge opportunity really early on of leadership opportunities. I qualified as an accountant, which I never really thought I'd do. I studied English and French at university, but I finished in top 10 finalists worldwide. I had great leadership mentorship with David Lewis, who was CEO of Tesco. And he really taught me the importance of challenging status quo, caring really deeply, and more importantly, really demonstrating your passion side of you and energy in a role to inspire people around you and make a difference. At Unilever, I really learned the importance of product market fit and the ideal customer profile. And this has been really important right the way through my career. I also, both during Unilever and after Unilever, worked with consultancies such as Accenture, McKinsey, and actually learning those methodologies and how you actually put them into businesses to make a difference and get operational efficiencies, excellence, and sort of drive growth actually really helped me as I left Unilever and moved into startups, working with private equity companies, and actually taking them on that growth journey. In 2015, I joined an AI company, a pure play knowledge. And again, there was a huge overlap to where I've ended up now with Speechmatics. And what was great is we had an amazing CEO there, Heather Richards, and she had this unfailing calmness and incredible eloquence of how we could articulate the product. And I've learned the importance of that, the importance of voice, the importance of that stability and having that, human-centric leadership style and actually taking people with you. In 2019, I led the competitive process with Heather, and that resulted in the acquisition of Transversal by Verint. IQ Capital introduced me to Speechmatics at that time. They were an investor in Transversal, and actually they saw this overlap with, the market I'd been in. And actually, I was incredibly excited about the opportunity there. And actually, I joined as CFO, as Jess just said, in 2019. And that really was me seeing, actually, I could make an impact on this next part of the journey and use, the skills I had learned at Unilever on product market fit, etc., and also the methodologies and the fact that, as a qualified accountant, I could actually take that commercial acumen into Speechmatics and start to sort of mature it as a business. After 7 months, I was asked by the board to actually take on that CEO role, and it's been a phenomenal journey.
Wow. I love how you sort of picked up so many mentors along the way. You called out people that had been really meaningful for you as role models. And I think that's so important to being able to step into the CEO role yourself, I guess, is to have developed all those mentor relationships along the way.
Yeah, I think it's that. I think it's actually learning from people, and each person has a different style, and understanding the style that actually is best for yourself. Every single person has a different leadership style and different leadership styles for different situations, and actually taking those parts that you can see really unlock, where people are stuck, and actually applying those within your own strategy, I think has been really important to me.
That's fantastic. So sort of thinking about your first, year or so in the role, what has been the most unexpected thing about being CEO?
As soon as you'll start the C-suite, you've got so many things to worry about, so many things to think about, so many things to change. To me, actually, the complexity to manage my time, for me, always being very looking across the business is actually that ability to say no. And that didn't necessarily come natural to me at the beginning. And I think also the fact that actually from transferable skills that you have across your career, actually going to CEO is actually bringing those all together. And, again, need to find my voice and remain on centre and make some pretty challenging decisions to take the people on that journey with me. And I suppose the most unexpected thing I would say is that it's been a phenomenal journey, which I think has been really successful for me. And if you'd asked me 5 years ago, is this something I would have expected to be doing? The answer would have been no.
That's fantastic. I love the sort of synthesis of all the other parts of your experience, whether it's the finance work you've done, the strategy consulting work you've done, product market fit, expertise. You can kind of bring them all together and say, like, you're bringing together all your past selves into you as CEO.
But also that it's kind of happened by accident. In what I heard in that is you didn't think that you were going to be doing that. And they might ask, why not?
Actually, when I was actually at Transversal, I could always see that I had that natural strength to take people together. And Heather and I worked really well together. Heather was phenomenal externally, and internally I really sort of helped drive the team, get that communication, make positive change. And I always saw it as a role that I wanted to aspire to do. But I joined Speechmatics as a CFO and saw the CEO as my next job, potentially in the next company. So it came earlier, and actually I really embraced that opportunity. And, the number of things you juggle as the CEO is 100. And one of the key advice I've been given throughout the year is say, take that hour of power, block out time in your diary so you actually think. Make sure that you're not always back to back, because actually it's the thinking that a CEO needs to do and get that clarity of thought, make sure we're making the right decisions. It's so important, which comes back to why you need to really manage those competing priorities.
Yeah. No, you're not the first person that we've spoken to that said the one critical thing is being able to say no and manage so that you get time to, as you say, to think.
Yeah.
I just want to, because I'm struggling with that a little bit. Like, how, if you say no to something, do you have to accept that it's just not going to get done?
The key thing is to understand the sort of high value side. So often you'll be asked to do things where actually it's just not a business critical decision. You don't need to be it. You can delegate it. If to me, it's building that high performance team around you that you can delegate and hand off key work streams as quickly as possible.
So, thinking about yourself in the CEO seat now, what do you think the biggest change in yourself has been, so far along that journey?
I think for me, it's realizing, to have that full positive power and authority as a leader, not being able to being afraid of making tough decisions, handling that enormous complexity that comes with every CEO role, and ensuring that I'm delivering on promises early to maintain and grow the credibility and trust with key stakeholders. Jane touched on before, this was a role that I wasn't expecting to take, and actually understanding myself, I suppose, to change in realizing that actually within myself, I've got the ability to do this and actually drive this and actually make a real difference to the organization, has been me going on that transition as a leader as well. I think it's important to see is, the importance of adapting, style of leadership to the situation stage. I am very much a human-centered leader. But, at times I have to take on a much more directive CEO stance to get people focused, drive change, but at the same time using an inspiring and motivating voice. So it's actually adapting my style to the situation, and people going to different zones. People talk about, wartime CEOs. Actually, wartime isn't necessarily myself, but I'm very directive if I need to be. So it's understanding, what is your secret sauce? What makes you different, and how can you, adapt at different stages with different people to make sure that we all end up where we want to be.
Yeah, I was just going to ask that in particular, like, what would you say your key superpower has been in these past sort of 2 years as CEO? Has it been that ability to adapt your leadership style? What's been the secret sauce?
Yeah, I think for me, it's I am very, very people-centric, and the ability to listen and understand issues, opportunities, and the people around me. So it's very much human-centered leadership, and this idea of leading with humility, but also having, huge resilience and grace. So yeah, it's very much like looking at the team, developing a high-performance leadership team, and actually taking people on that journey with you. Because we'll have much greater success if we're all going together. So actually making sure we've got the right people around me and everyone understands what we're trying to do, what our goals are, I think is very much where I see my strength.
Fantastic. And I know we spoke on this earlier, but the idea of focus and being disciplined about time management and where you're actually needed. When you're thinking about saying yes versus saying no to priorities, how do you approach that? Do you use that RACI framework every time, or do you have a broader approach?
I think for me, it's always comes back to what you're trying to achieve as an organisation and keeping that focus. So it's understanding very quickly whether actually that's going to help deliver what we're trying to deliver as a team, as an organisation, and actually saying no if I don't think it's important, or like delivering the goal we're trying to do. So that's the way I always prioritize.
No, that makes a ton of sense. I love that ability in a CEO to step back, look at the bigger picture. What are we really trying to do here? What's our focus point? And then there's of course that saying that startups don't die of starvation, they die of indigestion, right? Yeah. So many. The risk is trying to do too many things, right? So keeping that focus has got to be critical. And you talked about human-centered leadership and building that leadership team around you. What do you think are the strengths you need in your team to make you more effective?
I think for me, I'm responsible for my own effectiveness. What makes a company successful is a great leadership team, and that includes colleagues who are humble, great integrity, and we all share common values. And we all need to promote and model behaviours of that culture. I heard Julia Hanna talk at a Silicon Valley event, and she talked a lot about radical empathy, and it really resonated with me. This idea of, really walking this, footprints of your employees, your customers, go the extra miles and really understand what motivates people, and that idea of, the market orientation, customer driven really goes back to my days at Unilever, where, you have to really excite the customer. You have to deliver the value. You really need to, solve and innovate challenging problems, but actually always make sure you create the wow factor. And that for me at Speechmatics, we are leading technology. It's always saying that we want to be innovative. We want to be inspiring. We want to move that dial. And, for me, that's how we be effective. If I focus on being effective at every single thing I do and actually challenging the norm and being innovative in my thought, then actually we gain that.
That's great. I love particularly when you talked about sort of empathy with the customers. And I love sort of executives like you that came from consumer products or services that are so customer centric because they have to be. And then when you bring that spirit into enterprise, like there's just a lot of magic there because that's a little bit more rare in enterprise technology. And but it's so special and needed to connect with the customer.
I totally agree, because I think people may look at my background and think, actually, it seems like you've had all these different types of experiences, but each one of them actually is just part of the toolkit.
Katy, you picked up an amazing the thread that we were talking about just a few minutes ago before the customer point was around decisions and decision making, and you talk so clearly about what you do to gain clarity on decision making. Could I ask you, before we get into the would you rather questions, what kind of decisions do you find most hard to make, and how do you go about solving those?
I think the most difficult ones are always going to be where there are competing priorities and people-centric ones. And actually, for me, it's when you have decisions to make, it's actually sometimes you need to take emotion out of decision and actually look at data, facts. I mean, I'm a qualified accountant. I'm very data-driven. I've been an analyst, and actually creating those methodologies to help you look at making decisions is always going to help you. But at the end of the day, there's always going to be a yes or no, and we're going to go in this direction, which means that other people or other priorities can't be met. So harder decisions will always be when other people feel it's so important for them to deliver what they believe is. And actually, for me, it's then actually making them realize as part of that journey that's actually not, there is another way to go. And, using ways of collaboration, understanding, exploration of ideas. But at the end of the day, a CEO's role is to make a decision. And I've got to be the person that says yes or no to things. And that will impact people and actually will have an impact on their motivation, etc. But fundamentally, I'm working in a company, we have a certain level of resources, and it's got to be the right decision for what we're trying to achieve, coming back to the focus. And it's my responsibility to make sure that the team are committed to that. So leaning in and committing.
Shall I head on in, Jess? It feels like we're at the right place to kind of talk about the would you rather leadership conversation.
Go for it.
And what is so amazing about talking to you today, and just to sort of hold that clear as a point for anybody listening to this, is that you've got this amazing experience of leading through change and transformation, taking an existing, still growing, kind of still a young company, so to speak. So not a mature business, but nevertheless one that has gone through a period of change and transformation. So, in the context of that, I'd love to ask you: would you rather hire for proven performance or potential, knowing that this is the backdrop you're operating in? I've got a part B. I'll let you answer that first.
It's clear for me. I'm here to hire the most talented people for a role. Somebody who demonstrates really open and curious mind. This idea of needing to have real intellectual curiosity is really important to me. I need people to be self-aware, have that humility and respect for others. Integrity is so important to me. So to me, when you're choosing between proven performance or potential, I make hiring choices based on business needs, team fit, and chemistry.
Yeah.
You select the best person for a position, whether that's talent or potential that exists in-house or externally.
Yeah, well done. Yeah, well said. Amazing. That's the scorecard all over. And I mean, it's pretty obvious. I think I'd love to sort of lead into this topic is: would you rather trust or harmony in your team?
Trust is a core foundational element of any team. It's got to exist for proper balance of harmony and healthy conflict. And it's also essential elements for high-performing teams. Trust and integrity are really interesting because they're not coachable. So you need to surround yourself with people of high integrity, who know how to build and keep trust. And trust is all about being authentic, having that consistency so people really understand how you're going to react. You can't hit numbers without full team trust. So trust is the cornerstone of all high-performance teams. And that's the most important thing. I don't settle for anything less, nor do the people with whom I work.
I totally agree. What are the first indicators for you that trust isn't there?
Trust is a very interesting word, actually. I think it's very much misused.
Yeah.
I think people often say, I don't trust a person, an idea, or a thing. It actually means they disagree. So I find trust is a very emotive word. Where I see breakdown of trust is where people are misaligned, and where you start seeing that actually there is miscommunication or things within the organisation seeing that lack of alignment.
Yeah, well said. So would you rather have optimism, maybe even blind optimism, just a belief that it can happen and it will work out in the end, versus resilience?
For any leader today, optimism and resilience are essential for both proactive and inspiring leadership. Especially when we're all tested, to lead in the unprecedented times, with the pandemic as an example. People who are optimistic typically are resilient and know how to lead with empathy, confidence and positivity. It's really important to be able to set that compelling vision and set that right tone, communicate, etc. And actually having that resilience to lead that through, and optimism is going to work. But to me, you need both. I know that's not the answer you wanted.
No, but it's a really interesting point. And to probe further there, the counter to that, which has its place still, is protect and manage risks. How do you manage that tension between then optimism and growing and protecting through change?
Yeah. See, I see protection as something that's slightly defensive behaviour. And maybe that's just the way, the nuanced language. The resilience is that strength. It has that feeling of real strength. And understanding what is immovable within an organisation, things that, as you talk about, protect IP, you protect culture, you protect. Equally, these things evolve like culture. And the resilience, enables leader, CEO to be calm, considered, consistent to values and direction. So to me, it is this feeling of businesses evolve, they move forward, and there is going to always be change, and change is really unsettling to people. And there would be an easy solution in times which are really difficult, is actually to protect the norm. But that doesn't mean a company can move forward and evolve.
Yeah.
So it is balancing that risk and say, actually, we think instinctively this is what we should do. You have a considered approach to ensure the hygiene factors are considered, such as, finances, etc. Do we have the right people for this? Do we have the right role? Because at some point you have to say, actually, we really believe in what we're trying to do here, and we're going to do it. And you can get some key indicators in the market, key indicators that show you whether that's the right thing to do. But to me, the business has got to evolve, and you've got to, move forward out of sometimes quite calm waters.
Amazing. In the context of change and transformation, then, would you rather get things done or get things right?
Get things done and get things done right. So I really listen to my gut, and to me, I'm a very instinctive leader. I'm somebody who is incredibly analytical, very much ideas, very creative and thinking. But actually, the way I look is always saying, actually, you've really got to get the right decision made and really drive that decision to actually completion. It's important for me to make, decisions at speed. A good decision, a decision needs to be made, and actually, sometimes what will stop an organisation moving forward is the lack of ability to make decisions.
Yeah, and as someone who's sitting here, Katy, I'm sitting here in full of admiration for the confidence that you're emitting and the clarity that you've got there of your own leadership. How have you built that confidence in your own decision-making capability?
I think the main factor is actually seeing the results, and seeing the results both in the impact on the people around me, seeing actually people being inspired and actually really sort of unblocking some of the areas which may have been, blocked before within the organisation. And actually in the numbers and what we're trying to do, for me, it's really important, we're a SaaS business, we need to get innovation out in the marketplace. And what's been really important to me is actually seeing the impact of the decisions I made very early on when I came in as CEO. What that's made a difference now is actually where we are in the marketplace, what we can do this year is incredibly exciting. And I can actually look at that and say, that is the difference I've made. I can actually see that I did these things. And naturally, I'm incredibly humble, and I learned this from my father, who was, made a huge difference, with computer and maths, and physics. But he is incredibly self-effacing as an individual. And actually, I've learned, actually sometimes you should look at things and said, I've done really well here. Did I actually expect to come into an organization and make a change like this?
Yeah.
Actually realizing and taking, realizing the impact you've made, and actually saying it's okay to say that's really good, because what that enables you to do is say, what else can we do? How can I move forward and continue to do this? And it just gives you that confidence that actually by taking those risks that you discussed before, actually was the right thing to do. Yeah,
I am fascinated at this point in my own career of this the two concepts of success and mastery. I'd love to ask you, if we get into that topic, would you rather success or mastery? Tell me about your impression of that.
Again, I think they're really entwined. I think the thing about mastery, I don't need to have to master everything. I need to have a brilliant team around me who I can delegate, that to, and have experts. It's all about specialism. So for me, I'm sort of leading the ship. I need to have people around me who are absolutely brilliant at what they do, but I don't need to master their specialisms. And success to me is getting that right team together, and the sum of the parts. So to me, that's what it's about. It's understanding, where does the mastery need to exist? How do I get those key people? What are the key talents I need? And how do we get that sort of magic when you bring it all together?
Perhaps talking to you in 12 months' time is a better time to ask this question, but you're here now, so I'm going to ask it. What would you rather enjoy the fruits of the achievements of that you whatever this leads to in terms of, say, fiscal success, versus the mastery of learning the wisdom of change leadership?
I love the journey. I think the journey is really exciting, and taking people with me on that journey. I do, if I in a year's time look back and say, actually, this is, look at the success we've had, that's a point in time. Yeah. Whereas actually learning along it is actually the richness, the tapestry of all the engagements you have, all of the avenues and the decisions you're making. That's actually where you really grow as an individual. And I think that's what I find exciting.
Yeah, no, I love that. And, just to reflect, for me, it brings purpose to my life. It makes my day, every single day that I'm talking to you, it's like, this is the meaning of my life, and so that mastery that I feel I'm learning as a talent advisor, then in unpacking, what it takes to be a phenomenal founder, leader, or just a leader is enough, right? I feel like it's enough when I finish the day. So on to you then, just a quick fire round to finish off. Would you love to learn, or would you rather even, learn a new spoken language or a new computer language?
I think it's important to be, very tech savvy here. We live in a tech-enabled society. And, I did French, as I said, as part of my degree at university. I love learning languages, but actually being able to understand and be tech literate is so important.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to read computer language then. Great. Would you rather be able to see the future, Katy, or read people's minds?
For me, in a simplistic way, I think we create our own future by making the right decisions now and laying the right framework. And so actually, our brains are designed to predict the future, but the challenge for a leader is actually to actually understand what you want that future to look like, and actually create a path so those outcomes will be delivered.
That is so empowering. I love that. I love it. Would you rather have a pause button on your life or a rewind?
You can only look forward to how I can make a difference. And, I want to be a really positive future reality for myself and others as a creative leader.
Yeah. So the pause then, just to have a cup of tea occasionally. And
I'm not very good at. I'm not very good at pausing. It's one of my weaknesses.
Would you rather be funnier than you are or smarter than you are?
The best version of myself I can be.
Oh, well said. You are such a diplomat. I love it. Okay, I'm going to force you on this next one. You can't give me both. Would you rather never age or never need sleep to function?
Look, my secret elixir is sleep. I don't think I get enough. I recently heard, the founder of Wonga, sorry, apologies. I recently was listening to the founder of Monzo, and he was just talking about how he realized that one day that every single day he was thinking about work at 3:00 in the morning. And I did sort of think, oh, maybe that's what I do. And I've really tried not to. And so, yeah, sleep is really important. And it's something, again, you need to allow your brain to compartmentalize and to file thoughts into that logical process. So to me, I need sleep.
Yes, I totally agree. Would you rather die in 20 years with no regrets or live to 100 and have a few?
Definitely live to 100 and never regret living and loving life to the fullest.
What an amazing point to end. Although I'll pass you over to Jess for your reflections.
Well, thank you so much, Katy. I think this has been really enlightening. I particularly love that sleep is your secret elixir. It's mine too. I really enjoy sleep.
Yeah.
But just to conclude on a sort of note of lessons learned and some personal wisdom, what advice would you give to your younger self? Given all you know?
I think it's to have faith and instinct. I'm very instinctful as a leader, and my instincts is very rarely wrong. And they really need to be strong and courageous and be prepared to challenge and make really difficult decisions. Secondly, find your voice and don't be afraid to use it to impact others, organisation and global society. And, this is really important for the future progress of our collective society. We need to hear from women leaders and really hear that voice. So define your voice, define your leadership style, and go and don't be afraid to make a difference.
I love that. Find your own voice and let it be heard. Yeah. And I love your whole career, your whole story has really been about impact. And I think it's really, really inspiring. And it must be great to get up in the morning with that kind of mission. So thank you so much for sharing with us. It's really been a pleasure.
That's great. Thank you. Thanks, Greg. Thank you. Thanks, Jane. Thanks.
Thank you.